All right, we'll come and bring you the very latest on that mission, but there is breaking news coming in. The United States has imposed tariffs on India of 25% plus a penalty for the continued import of Russian oil. There's a statement which has come in from Donald Trump. I'm going to read out that statement which has just come in. While India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they've always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. All things not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above, starting on the 1st of August. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So this is a huge setback at a time when India had fully expected, after months and months of very hard negotiations on a free trade agreement between India and the United States, of a breakthrough. There's an American delegation expected to have come over here, but now with Trump unilaterally declaring that India will pay a 25% tariff from the 1st of August, it's quite clear that his patience no longer exists. And I think perhaps more worrying is the fact that America is linking India's oil imports from Russia to tariffs, a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above. So over and above 25%, Trump says that India's continued import of oil from Russia will be a factor. Now, this is a huge setback because the government has said all along that India's energy policy will remain autonomous. We are not bound by anybody. We are not obliged to listen to America or anybody else. We have an enormous nation and we need to get the best price. And therefore, India would continue this. Now, America thus far has gone along with this policy. There have been objections to this among European countries and America as well. But the foreign minister in particular has stood firm, saying that there are huge double standards in terms of demands that India stop the import of Russian oil. Parts of Europe have been dependent on Russian energy as well. But let's just listen to what Donald Trump has had to say.
India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%. Is that what you're tracking, or what do you think the rate will be for India?
That they are going to pay 25%.
Yeah, that India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, I think so. Look, they're my friends, and he's my friend. And, you know, they ended the war with Pakistan at my request, and that was great. And Pakistan did also. India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that.
All right, well, that's just a part of that key statement which Donald Trump has made, but there's a lot more which he's put out on his social media website. Let's go across to my colleague Arjun, who's been tracking this. What exactly, Vishal rather, who's tracking this. Vishal, what exactly has Donald Trump said?
Some strongly worded statements released by Trump just few moments ago. He's gone on to say that India is US's friend, but we have over the years done relatively little business with them. And he's also highlighted that India does business with Russia repeatedly. India buys arms with Russia. He has clearly worded these things out and said that the killing in Ukraine has not stopped. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25+%, and there will also be a penalty for the above starting on August 1st. So August 1st was the deadline for the countries to reach deal with the US. Many countries have done so, including EU, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia. At least 6 to 7 countries have reached a deal, and there were reports suggesting that India would also reach a deal soon. Both the sides had met repeatedly in the last 3 to 4 months. There had been many positive statements from the top leaders from both the sides, but all of that was not to be. Trump has come and given this bombshell of a statement and said that India has the highest tariff rate in the world. They have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they have always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia. and also are Russia's largest buyer of energy along with China. So they're sort of putting the blame on India for a lot of these problems across the world, but it will have to be seen what Indian authorities say on this, because there have been this tit for tat on these statements from all the sides that why does India buy oil and other things from Russia? India has given many statements saying that India needs to buy oil because there are lesser avenues on the global stage. So India has the need that it has been trying to figure out. So that will have to be seen. So the Trump's statement clearly putting the blame on India, and this is a big surprise for both the sides, because as I mentioned, there had been many positive statements coming from both the sides, from US Trade Representative to India's Business Minister Piyush Goyal. They had met many times in the last 5 months, and many positive statements had come, but Trump has given this bombshell of a statement now.
All right, I think what makes this particularly significant is that this is, as I see it, no longer just about the entire trade issue. The moment you've got Trump hitting out at India for the majority of our military equipment being from Russia, and number two, hitting out at India for our continued import of oil from Russia, from energy from Russia, and therefore they would imply a tax over and above that 25%. That's unlikely to work for India, right? So could you just reflect for us how the foreign minister has gone around the world saying that there is no way anybody is going to pressurize us on our energy requirements and imports?
That's exactly right. And as Jaishankar, as you mentioned rightly, has gone across the globe and talked about this problem that India has to buy oil from Russia and has to buy equipment, military equipment from Russia. So this is non-negotiable, and many countries support this India's sort of non-alignment strategy of having good relations with almost all countries across the globe, be it US, be it Russia, to some extent even China. We have big businesses with China. So that will have to be seen what Trump has to say to that now, because that will be the argument that India will make, that India needs these businesses to stay afloat and to have these big deals, big military deals, and in this day of wars spreading across the globe, India will have to have this strong stance. And even though Trump has gone on to sort of squarely blame India for a lot of these conflicts, Indian side will definitely come up with even a stronger statement, and Trump will definitely face the flak from Indian side.
All right, I think the point that we need to keep reflecting on is that this goes beyond trade, it affects the relationship. We've got reactions as well coming in. We've got our correspondent Natasha who will be joining us in a moment. We've also, who do we have at the moment? We've got Rishabh from NDTV Profit joining us. Rishabh, India and the United States have been negotiating a trade deal now for several months. There's an American delegation expected to have arrived. There was signs of very strong breakthroughs taking place, but now Trump goes and announces this. Where does that leave the trade deal?
Right, Vishnu, what this means is essentially the fact that an interim trade deal has not been made. That was something that was on the mind of both sides starting July 9th, which is when the first tariff deadline was. That was then extended to August 1st, and now an interim trade deal is not made, but the first tranche of this bilateral trade agreement that was agreed upon in February, that is what is currently also being negotiated. The deadline for that is October, but till then, there is this temporary tariff that Indian exporters have been hit with. This is higher than what was expected. We expected somewhere between 10 and 20%, given the fact that India was one of the first countries to actually have reached out to the US, and the two of them started negotiating. But this is one of the first, this is a slightly higher tariff. Also, this puts us at some sort of tariff disadvantage vis-a-vis other manufacturing economies like Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia. All of them have been able to eke out better deals at about 19% or 20% tariffs.
NDTV Profit and Carrie tracking the story very closely. Let's just take a look at what's happening.
Been going on is this kind of a unilateral, unceremonious announcement of what the tariff figure is. Sanjana, as of this morning, we were talking about a figure between 20 to 25%.
Right.
And that also was not something that, would have been ideal, because before that, the conversation was 10 to 15%. If you can give 15% to the European Union, why not to India?
Absolutely.
Was the question. Here you've come with 25%. Plus a penalty, which we don't know what that penalty amount is.
Absolutely. And I think it's also hitting where it hurts because of the entire run-up to this. Let's remember that the Indian delegation has in fact visited the United States not just once but twice. There was also conversations around the US delegation coming to India to continue these negotiations. So really the question now we're trying to understand is what happens of those negotiations. Last night we did in fact bring you the news of it could be 20 to 25%. That's what sources were in fact telling us. But now we're getting the news that, Trump not just saying it in an official statement, but coming out on Truth Social.
It's quite offensive for him to call our policies obnoxious. I mean, yes, we shouldn't be surprised because this is what Trump speak now looks like. But I'm going to go across to Rishabh Bhatnagar, my colleague who's been tracking the story very, very carefully. Rishabh, you've been speaking since this morning on the various scenarios that could play out. I think this is worse than the worst.
Right, Tamanna, this is a tariff that is not expected. This is slightly on the higher side. What most people were expecting was somewhere around 10 to 20% tariff. That would put us somewhere around what other manufacturing economies like Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, they've been able to hammer out as part of negotiations with the US. But clearly, 5 in-person rounds of negotiations since February, a 6th one that is scheduled for August 25th. But clearly an interim deal not reached between the two sides. There is a 25% tariff now that Indian exporters will have to face. That is something that will put us at a temporary disadvantage versus other manufacturing economies. So that is what we're gathering so far.
Stay on with us, Rishabh. I'm going to go across to Ajay Bagga, who has been actually going through the story with us through its various twists and turns. Mr. Bagga, your first response to, frankly, what is an obnoxious post? I think that's the only way to describe it. 25% plus more. Now, what is this more?
No. See, he's done it to everybody from Japan to European Union, even Australia, which has an FTA with them, or Korea, which has an FTA. He's put a 25% unilateral tariff. So this is like, on expected lines. We should not feel humiliated by this. It's okay. 5 rounds of negotiations have happened. Apart from the obnoxious language he used, when Prime Minister Modi was there with him in the White House, where he said India is a tough negotiator and India has a lot of non-tariff barriers. Mostly we have got away lightly because we were working very hard on backstage with them. But this is a letdown, Tamanna, because our team came back 2 weeks back after the 5th round. And then they said in the middle of August, we will send the US team to negotiate. So what we were conjecturing that probably they will let the tariffs run. And in September, Trump might be coming to India for the Quad meeting. He will want to sign a BTA himself. So maybe he's pushing it for a large agreement. But today is a negotiation tactic where he's thrown a maximalist position, he's thrown an outlier position, 25%, and he's talked about 100% if you buy Russian oil. So let's see whether he comes on that or not. We'll have to check that out. But we have to now go with this. This is a price.
All right, big story that we are tracking here on NDTV. Donald Trump's unilateral announcement of 25% plus penalties as tariff against India, which will be applicable from August 1st. What does this mean? We'll decode all that. But first, just listen in
to what Donald Trump, in fact, said while announcing these tariffs. He has put out a post on Truth Social as well, and he has also spoken about this. That listen into President of the United States announcing the 25% plus penalties on India.
Is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%. Is that what you're tracking, or what do you think the rate will be for India?
That they are going to pay 25%.
Yeah, that India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, I think so. Look, they're my friends, and he's my friend. And, you know, they ended the war with Pakistan at my request, and that was great. And Pakistan did also. India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that.
My colleague Vishnu Shom also here in the studio with me. Vishnu, there is no other way to, in fact, describe this but a very unilateral, in fact, a blow as far as this entire, negotiations and this announcement of the tariff is concerned from Donald Trump.
No, Ankit, it's more than just a blow for tariffs. I think we are now well beyond that tariffs phase. If Trump says that there are going to be tariffs over and above 25% because of India's continued import of Russian oil, plus references to India's continued import of Russian weaponry, one of the largest in the world, that's factually correct. But that affects the nature of the relationship itself. And it is just such a disappointment that at a time when India and the United States were on the verge of getting a really substantive trade deal done, intense speculation about whether this would be a mini deal leading up to a mega deal, whether India would ensure that our concerns, for example, in dairy and agriculture were protected, and the sense that that relationship where we've seen incredible growth, whether it's semiconductors, whether it's AI, whether it's weapon systems, whether it's green tech, whether it's all sorts of technology, whether it's cutting edge technology, all of it has been built on decades of work. When I started covering international and defense and all of that, 30 years ago, India and America didn't have anything in terms of a strategic relationship. It went through a negotiation where there were documents which were negotiated for years. They were called foundational agreements. Those foundational agreements defined the nature of that strategic relationship. Yes, there have been problems, but both sides have said that, look, we'll figure it out, we'll work it out. Nothing gets beyond the fact that we are the closest partners. But if now America decides to unilaterally impose a 25% tariff, that of course is something that Trump has done with other countries in the world, and then say there will be an additional amount for your imports of energy from Russia, then that puts India in a terrible position.
Yes.
Because the foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar, has traveled around the world and he's made it very clear India's position with regard to the import of oil is autonomous. We are not bound by anyone, and there are huge double standards when it comes to that, particularly with European nations who also in the past have relied on Russia.
But, Vishnu, coming to that itself, so these tariffs and the announcement, in fact, the way it has been announced unilaterally by Donald Trump on Truth Social, and of course, you heard that soundbite as well, it is just not about trade and economics. It is also a strategic message being sent, like you pointed out, on buying oil from Russia, and Russia being a steadfast partner as far as India is concerned.
You know what, Ankit? It's not just that soundbite. That soundbite which we just heard is a small part.
Yeah.
What he's actually got out on Truth Social is, it's, some would say, obnoxious.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm going to read that out for our viewers. Remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world. They have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. So he used the word obnoxious as well. Also, they've always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. All things not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above, starting on the 1st of August. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
I mean, there couldn't have been, it's classic Donald Trump, and coming out.
He says something in the morning and then he changes his mind.
What
There's
kind
an
of
American delegation expected over here in India in a couple of days.
What kind of
to
friendship
talk
is
about
this?
trade?
I mean, you start with Modi is my friend, India is my friend, and
And then
you
25% plus
penalties.
Plus penalties, which we don't know.